Just not good today. Come back tomorrow, new attitude.
What do you think? Anything you can pinpoint as far as tonight goes?
If I knew, I would do it. Probably the most lost I've ever been, and just kind of not just getting the job done, which weighs on me heavily.
So that's Tanner Houck after another rough outing against the Detroit Tigers, 11 earned runs. Second time he's allowed 11 earned in a start this season. Red Sox fall 14-2 to the Detroit Tigers. More importantly, you see it right there, him in just disarray and disbelief right now. Let's bring him in, our guy, Will Middlebrooks. He's out in Detroit. He's calling the games for the Red Sox. Will, good morning. Thanks for joining us, my man.
Hey, guys. How we doing today?
Doing good, doing good. Now, you heard him right there, and what jumped out to me, Will, is this is the most lost I've ever been, hearing that from Tanner Houck. Yeah. Take me inside the mind of a Major League player, regardless of the position. What's that like, and how do you find your way out of being that lost?
You know, everybody at some point, not everybody, a lot of guys have that moment, right, or that week or whatever. As a hitter, at least you get to play the next day and work on it, and hopefully, you know, you get a hit and you feel better about yourself. But for pitchers, if they have a bad outing, they have to just marinate on it for 5 days until they get to do it again, and sometimes that can be a bad thing mentally. So it's interesting with Houck. He had that really bad one in Tampa a few starts ago, and then he got better and better and better over his last 3 starts, and you're thinking, okay, he's getting back to who he is and who we saw last year in the first half. And then yesterday, it just completely knocked off the steps that he had started to build, and there was zero fastball command. And in this league, if you don't have any command of your fastball, as we saw yesterday, teams will just rock your off-speed pitches. And they didn't even flinch at his fastball. They were looking for the sweeper and the split in the zone, and they were doing damage on that because they knew that was the only thing he could throw for strikes. And going forward, 2 options, right? So this is an opportunity. I think maybe they could send him to AAA and get some work in just so he can figure his stuff out and not keep getting exposed here at this level. Because it was hard to watch yesterday. It was hard to watch him after his outing in the dugout because you could tell how tough that was on him mentally right there.
Yeah, you mentioned the fact of the emotions weighing into it, and there kind of only being 2 resolves here. But at the end of the day, the Red Sox aren't really in a position to play with their depth when it comes to the guy on the mound. Like, how will this affect the Red Sox if he does end up having to go down to triple?
Well, we saw a guy yesterday in Sean Newcomb who will now be, threw 98 pitches in relief, but he'll be lined up for 5 days from now if they need him to pitch in that situation. They're also going to get Walker Buehler back likely on Monday, the first day against the Mets at home. So he'll be back, and Richard Fitz isn't too far off. He's throwing a live BP here pretty soon, so he'll probably have 1 or 2 rehab starts, and then he'll be back as well. So this is kind of something we started the season with, saying, hey, the Red Sox finally have some starting pitching depth. A couple guys went down, obviously. Giolito and Bayo being back helps that situation. And like I said, with Buehler being back on Monday, I think that helps as well. So I think they keep Newcomb around. They can't option him. They would have to DFA him, which that would make him susceptible to being picked up on the waiver wire by another ball club, and then you lose him completely. So with Houck having those options and having a couple guys coming back, I think maybe this could be a good time to not just skip a start, but send him down to get his work in and figure this thing out.
And you brought up that start against Tampa. You take away that start and yesterday's start. That's 2,200 runs off his resume. ERA drops from 8.04 to a sub-4. What's been the difference with him from when you've seen when he's on and the fastball is working, and the nights like last night, which in a way, like, they seem random, but we've seen it happen before, which is startling?
Yeah, and this goes back to spring training. He had a really tough spring training. If you look at his numbers all the way back to the start of camp, he's given up 60 runs in 57 innings. You don't want to talk about spring training like that just because normally guys are working on things and you don't really care about the results there. But with this and how it snowballed into the season, you start wondering what's going on. And it's not health. We saw him up to 96 yesterday. The velocity's still there, and that wouldn't be the case if he was hurt or pitching through something. This is mechanical, it's mental, it's just execution of pitches. And back to your point, George, this is just about his fastball. And at his best, in his last couple starts, he was locating 94 to 96 with sink on the corners, in off the plate. And then all of a sudden you're looking at count leverage, and he's 0-2, he's 1-2, and he's ahead of these guys. And now he can throw the off speed for Chase. He's getting himself in these situations where hitters know his fastball's not going to be in the zone, and they're not even looking for it. They're just going to wait for the sweeper, the split. And we saw yesterday those pitches got hit hard because they were the only ones he was throwing in the zone. And even when he was throwing those in the zone, they were up in the zone and good pitches to hit. And it was pretty loud yesterday.
Yeah, well, we've talked about the fact that sometimes it could be more of the mental aspect. I caught you talking on View from the Booth about kind of the veteran presence in this clubhouse. Is there just something that can help uplift him? He said if he could figure it out, he would. And one of the hardest things is if you can't pinpoint an element of your game to be successful for your team. So how can the veterans probably rally around him and help him mentally here?
Yeah, a lot of these guys who've been around, if you're around the league long enough, you go through tough stretches. You go through stretches, maybe not like this, but think about Rafael Devers, right? He started 0 for 19 with 15 strikeouts, arguably the worst start all time by a hitter. So at some point in his career, he's going to be able to sit down with a struggling hitter at the beginning of a season and say, hey, put their arm around him and say, hey, I've been there. I've been through a tough stretch. And look, you come right out of it. Just keep your head down. Keep working. Don't let this snowball mentally. That can be the hard part for these guys is not to completely lose all confidence in yourself. And I've been there. I've been there. I've been in those tough stretches where you feel like you're never going to feel like you used to feel at the plate or on the mound or defensively. And this is just part of the roller coaster that is Major League Baseball. It's the ebbs and flows, the ups and the downs, and you have to do your best to be even keel and not ride that wave. And sometimes you have to realize, I can't keep doing this at the big league level. I have to go down. I have to get my work in. I have to dig into this in a different environment where the pressure isn't on me as much. The anxiety's not as high, and I can go get my work in and just figure this thing out.
Yeah, what does that do going down to that lower level? I understand less pressure, less eyes. Does it also give yourself more freedom to experiment, maybe change some things when it comes to your technicalities, your fundamentals? What exactly does that avenue do to go down to the AAA level and pitch instead of staying up at the MLB level, Will?
Yeah, so it's not that the numbers don't matter down there, but they're not going on the back of your baseball card, right? They're not your permanent major league numbers that affect arbitration and the money you make and this and that. So in that case, the numbers don't matter, but you also don't want to go down there and stink. You also don't want to go down there and lose. You still want to, they're still trying to win at the lower levels. But you're also playing in front of, 7,000 or 8,000 people instead of 40 or 50,000 people, 30,000 people, whatever. It's the pressure's different. The pressure to win isn't the same. And you are able to literally, in his situation, treat it like spring training and say, all right, I'm going to go into this start and just work on this. And if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world, right? It's not the major leagues. But he needs to just have that environment where he can go down there stress-free and just figure this thing out.
Yeah, well, in addition to the mentality on the mound, something else that we've kind of seen be a costly situation is some errors in the mix. How do the Red Sox kind of string together more consistency in cleaning these things up so that they don't have to have these bounce back and these big responses after certain losses after we see such tremendous play from them as a unit?
Yeah, so defensively, they were really rough early on. And, we talked about the weather and this and that and whatever excuses we could make. And then it's really cleaned up a lot lately. Yesterday was bad. Yeah, I mean, the Wilyer Abreu ball that bounced over his glove was really rare. He's a Gold Glover. Things like that really don't happen to him. That was just one of those freak baseball plays. The ball took a bad bounce, went over his glove. The day before, Trevor Story, very good glove at shortstop, same thing. Weird hop, but weird hops happen, and you got to try to find a way to combat that and make the play. And they'll both tell you that can't happen. But I thought what stood out to me the most was the play with Abraham Toro at first. The jam shot to second base, and he makes a bad read on it, goes after it. No one's there to cover first base, and I think that just kind of shows the inexperience and the void at first base without Tristan Casas after his injury, and that being something this team will have to assess at some point. But I thought the defense overall the past couple of weeks has been much better.
Yeah, you point out what the improvements could be made on defense. We know Rafael Devers was spoken to about the possibility of making that switch to first. publicly said, hey, look, I don't want to do that right now, but he is open to being with the team. But Will, I bring that up to you because you have played first base in the same season you played third. Now, I've looked at your game log. It was like 9 innings. You're primarily a third baseman, but you went out there and you made that switch and you made that pivot mid-season, maybe it was mid-game. What's the biggest difference for a guy that at the drop of a hat is asked to go from third to first base?
Yeah, I have played a lot of first base actually in the minor leagues though as well. So I've actually logged a lot more innings down there doing that, being a utility player later in my career. The hard part is not catching the ball and flipping it to the pitcher or going to the bag and tag it. The hard part is your footwork around the bag. That read, which we saw yesterday with Toro, knowing whether do I go get this ball or do I just sprint to first base. And then there's at times with metrics and analytics now where against a right-handed batter, you're playing way towards second base, and you have to trust the fact that, all right, this ball's hit away from me. I turn my back to the play and sprint to the bag, and you turn around and you have to find where the ball is. You have to then think of, all right, what's my right angle to attack this ball. You have to learn how to pick those throws down low. So it's not everybody makes it out to be, oh, he played third base. It's got to be super easy just to go over there. It's completely different. Catching the ball off the bat's one thing, but the small things of the figuring out the footwork and the angles and this and that can take some time to get used to. So I do still think Rafi ends up working over there a little bit at some point. It's probably going to take a couple weeks for him to get comfortable there. And I think part of that has to do with Masataka Yoshida. I think if he was ready and he was healthy and able to come DH right now, then maybe they'd be pushing him towards first base a little quicker. But right now, there's not really anyone to fill that DH spot. I doubt they want to do that with a Roman Anthony or somebody like that right now because he's 20 years old. They will want to stunt his development in the outfield by just sticking him at DH right now. I know they could do a revolving DH and this and that, but for now, and Rafi's raking, which, he wins AL Player of the Week after all this mess that happens. It just, they paid him for his bat. Let's be honest. They never paid Rafi to be a above average defender. They knew he would never be that guy. They were just hoping for average defense, make the plays right at you, and we're going to pay you to drive in 100 runs. And he's swinging the bat really well right now, so it's making it a little bit easier for that to kind of disappear.
Yeah, you mentioned the raking. Okay, I come from a hockey background, so superstition is just a big conversation for everything. But could it be a little bit of like, he's crushing it right now? Why bring any potential instability or routine change up to somebody who had that slower start, took so much heat on his shoulders because of it? Now the rhythm is set, and then the movement. Could part of it just be, let me just continue to stay in my rhythm?
Well, the reason this is the other side of it. He's making $30 million a year. He signed a $13 million deal. When you're making the most money in franchise history, normally they say jump and you say how high because you're paying me a lot of money. Mm-hmm. There is two sides to everything, as we all know, and there's a human aspect to this. And part of messing with the routine that he finally figured out and got comfortable at DH after essentially losing his job to Alex Bregman when they brought him in spring training, and that was kind of a mess to start with. So they basically told him, hey, throw away your glove. You don't need it anymore. And then, oh, by the way, okay, never mind. Just kidding. So maybe I think all around this whole thing probably could have been handled a little bit better by everyone involved, not just Rafi, but the team as well. But that's it. This is not a normal situation. So there's really no textbook play on something like this. And no one really expected for Tristan Casas, one, to struggle this much out of the blocks, but also blow his knee out. So this is just having to adapt on the run. And I guess it's great that Rafi's swinging the bat really well and contributing offensively and starting to look like the Rafi that we've known forever as far as one of the best left-handed bats in baseball.
Yeah, Will, I ask you this because there seems to be no right answer in what the Red Sox can do at first base because everyone's wondering who could play that. You point out how Rafi's raking 1301 OPS his last 16 games. And to your point, they were like, hey, put the glove away, go hit. And he's like, all right, I'm hitting like a top 5 hitter in baseball right now. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Let's get a real first baseman there. What in your eyes would make sense? Because I also love that you point out, I wouldn't put Roman Anthony at DH. I want him to continue to develop to be a good outfielder.
This is a tough one. And who says Rafi would be a good first baseman? We don't know. We have no idea. And how much would that affect his offense? And part of this too is what I like at him being at DH is the fact that we're probably going to get 160 games of Rafael Devers. he's going to be healthy. How much will that affect his health, his body? We've seen him defensively deal with things from, diving and shoulders hurting and banged up legs. And I'm kind of okay with him just being fresh and in the lineup every day, getting 4 to 5 at bats and getting on base 2 to 3 times a game, and the ability to change the game with one swing of the bat. I like that option, batting second in my lineup, all the time, third in the lineup, excuse me. But I think if you're looking at options right now, I think you try to find guys not necessarily are going to give you a lot of offense, because the options there right now are guys who are not high ceiling offensive players. You got to find a guy who can just consistently catch the ball. I just want someone who's not going to hurt this team defensively. And right now, I feel like the best option, what we've seen so far, is Nick Sogard. He's looked the best over there, in my opinion. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife when it comes to an infielder. He can play outfield as well, but he's very good defensively. His footwork has looked the best. He's looked the most comfortable over there. I always wondered if they're going to, with Yasmani Grandal in AAA, if they would bring him up and maybe get Connor Wong sometime at first base, but he's not swinging the bat well enough for them to make that decision. So right now, I think it's going to be a revolving door. It's going to be a utility player. Whoever has the hot hand, they're going to play over there. But I think Nick Sogard, at the time being, looks the best, and I think we start seeing him a little more.
Yeah, capitalize on that lineup, capitalize on that defense.
Sorry to cut you off, George, but let's not forget Romy Gonzalez is going to come back too.
Yep.
And Romy's been decent. Romy's been decent over there. He had that injury after the collision, so he went on the IL. He was sore. He played a game after that, and tried to at least, and he was hurting. But he's going to be an option as well. Nick Sogard can hit left-handed. He's a switch hitter. Romy's a right-handed batter, so you might see a little bit of a platoon once Romy's back.
Hey, if that's consistent, good first base play, Will, you can interrupt me anytime, my man. We just want something good at that spot in the corner infield. He's Will Middlebrooks. Appreciate you waking up with us, Will, starting the day, man. Hat looks fantastic, by the way, brother.
Thanks, you guys, for having me.
Appreciate you, Will. You'll catch him on the call later. Red Sox out in Detroit. Catch that game on NESN, of course. George Balekji, Kasey Hudson. We'll take one more break on Boston as end of the chat. When we're back, we'll talk more Cooper Flagg. Looking like he'll end up in Dallas.